Good evening. I am Bruce Barnes, the Ron and Donna Fielding Director of the George Eastman Museum, and welcome to the Dryden Theater at the George Eastman Museum this evening. It is the Eastman Museum's great pleasure to partner within this moment to host this evening and to present the latest issues of the chapbook series, Books 5 and 6 in Volume 3. The leaders being honored the important leaders of our community being honored this evening are Ms. Stanley Morton, who is the co-founder of Free the People Rock and also a city council member. And we're deeply grateful for her service to our community. And Professor Luvon Sheppard, artist, and I am told 50 years professor at the Rochester Institute of Technology. There are 5 works by him that are on view, I believe watercolors, in the Walt Concourse, and it is a great honor to have you here this evening. The first volume of the In This Moment chapbooks were published in 2020, 2021. Which seems like a very long time ago, when many students were still learning virtually. The chapbooks continue to be distributed for free through the Monroe County Libraries. So please make your friends and associates aware of that. This is the 4th book launch that the Eastman Museum has hosted. We are grateful to all of you for joining us on this windy and cold evening. It is now my great pleasure and privilege to introduce Nanette Noken, the chair of the Board of Trustees of the George Eastman Museum. She is founder of Noken & Associates, a private wealth advisory practice of Ameriprise Financial Services, LLC.
Good evening, and thank you, Bruce, for introduction. I also want to extend my congratulations to Stanley Martin and Professor Luvon Sheppard. Wonderful honor, and thank you for honoring us in the Dryden Theater this evening. Thank you. I can't get extra height. Thank you. I think that's better. The museum is committed to sustained efforts that welcome, broaden relationships with, and increase representation in our programs of historically underserved peoples of our community, especially our dear Rochester. We continue to share powerful work by local students here at the museum in the community gallery. If you didn't get a chance to visit the gallery, the community gallery, I invite you to come back and view it. The works right now that's on display is by the teens of Western New York from Planned Parenthood's after-school program called In Focus. Please do take the time to visit. And starting on March 15th, we will also once again celebrate the work of students from Flower City Arts Center's Studio 678 Photo Club. And next month, we are thrilled to provide complimentary admission to 6 films here at the Dryden Theater in conjunction with Black History Month. It includes a series of Black music documentaries, and be sure to pick up a flyer about the programs, the series, when you leave today, and I hope you can join us. So welcome again and thank you, and now I'm pleased to acknowledge the great work of Jean Strasabusco, and Amanda Chestnut of In This Moment. I now invite Amanda to begin our program.
Thank you so much, Nanette. Thank you, everyone. Welcome. Good evening. My name is Amanda Chestnut. I am the curator and publisher of In This Moment, and I'd like to welcome you all to our celebration tonight of Stanley Sheppard and Luvon Martin. Luvon Martin and Stanley Sheppard. Hi, I'm dyslexic. And the artists who brought their stories to life. On behalf of the In This Moment family, we wish to thank the George Eastman Museum for hosting our book launches for Volume 3. We are grateful for your warm welcome and your careful attention to the hundreds of details. Thank you so much. Special thanks also to Mary Warboyce Turner and Scott Turner for being our reception sponsor. Thank you all for coming out in the cold weather. We appreciate you coming out tonight for our luminaries and for our artists. We also have some special guests in the audience tonight. We would like to give a shout out to, if you are one of In This Moment's previous participants, either a leader, a photographer, or an essayist, please stand and let us thank you. If you are a student, an educator, an educational leader, a librarian, or any youth leader in one of our many youth organizations, please stand so we can thank you as well. We wish to thank you for breaking open and sharing these stories of Rochester's Black luminaries. The other folks that we wanted to thank, Okay, I'm making sure I'm doing this in order, sorry. The other people that we wanted to thank, if you did not have a chance to greet them in the Wolt Concourse, are the Lunch Door Podcast Network, who has supported In This Moment and helped us publish our first fully accessible audiobook. That will be available on our website, through the Lunch Door Podcast Network, and through the libraries as well. Thank you very much to them for helping us make our books even more accessible. It is because of ITM's sponsors, grantors, and individual donors that we can do this work. We have 4 remaining chapbooks left in Volume 3 to create, and we would like to be able to distribute them for free to the youth and adults throughout Rochester. If you please could visit inthismoment585.org and support our project, we would be so grateful. It is my pleasure to introduce to you our moderator, April Franklin. April is more than a storyteller. She's a dynamic force dedicated to amplifying the diverse voices of Rochester's vibrant communities. April's journey into storytelling was fueled by her passion for community connection, working in healthcare, where she spent over a decade working in the emergency department of URMC. Her love of stories and documentaries inspired her to obtain a bachelor's degree in broadcast journalism from SUNY Brockport and a master's degree in television, radio, and film from SI Newhouse School of Public Communication at Syracuse University. April got her start in the Rochester market as a part-time on-air host of WXXI's Weekend Edition. Her love of journalism eventually transitioned to a full-time role at the local NPR affiliate, where she covered pandemic-related human interest stories before transitioning to the housing beat. Beyond traditional media, April's passion for storytelling knows no bounds. She has carved out a unique niche on TikTok, where her lifestyle content has garnered over 2.5 million likes and captivated an audience of 15,000 followers. April is a longtime member of the National Association of Black Journalists and a former vice president of the Rochester Association of Black Journalists. Welcome, April.
I didn't fall, Grammy. Hi, good evening, everybody. First of all, I want to reiterate, thank you guys for coming out in the cold and the wind to be here to honor our luminaries tonight. Give another hand for them. I'm going to scoot over here. It definitely is an honor to be even asked to moderate these talks. What we're doing is really highlighting history at a time when people don't even want to acknowledge Black history. So it's a great honor to be able to highlight Black artists, leaders in our community. So let's get started. Are y'all excited? I'm excited. All right, so, excuse me, I had to get my stuff together, but we're going to start with Mr. Professor Luvon Sheppard, a resident of Rochester since he was 5 years old. Sheppard received his bachelor's and master's degree at the Rochester Institute of Technology, where he is a full professor in the School of Art and Design. Luvon has taught at SUNY Brockport and SUNY Geneseo universities. Sheppard's paintings reflect his involvement in the Rochester community life. He's known for his watercolor street scenes and portraits of local African American heroes, including abolitionist Frederick Douglass, choreographer and dancer Garth Fagan, and community activist Mildred Johnson. His work is in the permanent collections of the Memorial Art Gallery, the City of Rochester, the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston, the University of Seoul, Korea, the Henrietta School District, Rochester Institute of Technology, Rochester Savings Bank, Garth Fagan Dance, and many other institutions. Welcome, Professor Sheppard. Oh, and I know that's right. He made it. And now for our second featured leader today. Stanley Martin is an abolitionist who served the Rochester community with courage, love, and integrity. With a longtime dedication to community care, Stanley has served as a mental health counselor for incarcerated people and led a substance use recovery center providing holistic health and wellness supports to people and their loved ones. In response to the 2020 police killings of George Floyd, Daniel Prude, and the systematic disinvestment of Black and working class communities, Stanley co-founded Free the People Rochester, a Black and Palestinian-led organization dedicated to implementing a care-based vision of community safety that prioritizes investments in safe housing, healthy food access, healthcare, education, and youth leadership. As an at-large Rochester City Council member, Stanley co-governs with neighbors and community organizations with a focus on intentional democratic decision-making that centers historically marginalized voices. Additionally, Stanley holds a master's degree in the community mental health and counseling, which grounds Stanley's activism in the practice of hope, humility, and compassion. Welcome, Stanley. Popular. Oh, thank you guys so much for joining us today. So we're gonna start with our elder. How you doing?
I'm doing good.
I just want to say, reading your chapbook, it was, for me, I'm learning like everybody else. Like, I like that I don't really get a firsthand knowledge of everything. It's like we're seeing a whole new side of you guys other than what's been said and read in the media. So just thank you for sharing your lives with us, first and foremost. You've been an educator for over 50 years with RIT. You've seen so much transition over the years from it being, moving from downtown to Henrietta, but you still managed to create community and art downtown. Why was that important to you?
Well, I grew up here in Rochester, and people like Midge Thomas, her husband, who was working, I think, for the U of R at that time, and he was a well-known scientist, just he was known outside of Rochester as well as in Rochester. And this gentleman used to walk the streets of Rochester in my neighborhood, in various neighborhoods, and we had access to this man. And then later on, after he passed away, his wife took over, and she did many, many things in the community to help us younger people. Rochester is a place that encourages anybody who wants to develop themselves. You know, we're just fortunate to have a community, a spirit in the community that wants to encourage others, whether it's white, black, Puerto Rican, whatever. There's this spirit that exists in Rochester that I don't see in any other place. And we're very fortunate, you know. But for me, people like Midge Thomas and others like her are the people who seeded me and fertilized the soil so that I can grow to be where I am today.
That's awesome that you mentioned, you know, other people that influenced you. You've been able to be a mentor to so many in the community and at RIT. Or were there any other mentors that you had growing up that, you know, shaped your life?
There were many people. Mrs. Ely was my grade school art teacher. Rena McKinley Steigerwald was my high school art teacher. Stan Whitmire was the director there of the art school at RIT, who knew me when I was at Madison High School, and but everything just sort of built upon itself. Everybody knew somebody who were higher up, and even when I was in the Army and I needed to get an early out to come back to college, Stanley Whitmire wrote a letter to the officers there, and I was able to get an early out to come back to RIT. So that's community. That's who Rochester is, and so I'm just a fortunate byproduct of that.
I mean, since we're speaking about mentors, I do want to ask you, Stanley, was there anybody that was a mentor to you coming up, and how did they shape your life?
So my mom and my cousin are here today, Makia, and my mom is Gifty. I've always been around really strong women, courageous women, and they definitely shaped who I am today and have definitely been very significant mentors for me.
That's awesome. Just, you know, to kind of piggyback off what you were saying, Professor Sheppard, you know, you mentioned a lot of educators that, you know, had made an impact in your life. So for those who are educators, your role is a privilege. You know, you don't even understand the impact that you have on the young people that you're influencing. So it goes to show, I don't want to tell your age, but, you know,
Yes.
but you're carrying that, you know, all these years in your life. So that really, you know, lets us know that it makes a difference.
Yeah, and you know, as other people have become successful, I mean, I don't have to mention, and people like Garth Fagan, you know, the Body family. God bless that family. You know, Dr. Body. You know, he leaves a legacy. There are other people in the community that's left a legacy, something to stir the rest of us. David Gann. Me and David Gann used to play basketball together until he outgrew me. You know, fabulous basketball player, but a great humanitarian, a great leader. He went to Roberts Wesleyan with me. When I first started the college, me and him went to Roberts Wesleyan together, and I was there for 2.5 years, and I think he was too. But they're great people in Rochester, great people, you know. Garth Fagan, and there are other people here in the community who have come back, you know, who've left Rochester and come back and helped, and as well as people who live here, who set standards, who set the marks of excellence. so that we can grow ourselves, and so we're very fortunate here to have the kind of byproducts that we have in this community.
That's awesome. Can you recall a moment or a piece that marked a turning point for your artistic journey?
Yeah. I think when I got the job at the Memorial Art Gallery as coordinator of neighborhood services, Harris K. Pryor was the one who contacted me at RIT. When I graduated from RIT, when I didn't even know what I was going to have a job after I got my master's degree. But he hired me at the Memorial Art Gallery, and he mentored. He didn't just hire me to work. He actually taught me, pulled me aside, and talked to me about who I was and the kind of character I should try to develop myself as being. And he bought the Armory show to New York City. A very soft-spoken, kind, gentle man, but carried a big stick. And so I'm very fortunate. Elizabeth Hurdle, who was the curator at the Memorial Art Gallery, who gave me a tremendous amount of support. Many, many other people like that at the gallery who helped me, And I know I get a lot of credit for starting the All of Us Art Workshop, but it wasn't really me. It was the board of directors at the Memorial Art Gallery at that time with Harris K. Pryor that really got that program going.
Wow, so just, a lot of names that you've mentioned that still supported you. And you do that through collaboration. A lot of the work that you do is creating through collaboration. Can you talk a little bit about that?
You mean just collaborating with different people and working with different people? Yeah, there's just innumerable people. The lady who started the Arts Council here in Rochester, she started in a little office. Pat Wild, was that Pat Wild? She started in a little office on, I think, South Avenue. Just a little room, and built an arts council that served many, many, many people here in the Rochester area. And it grew into a real large program that serviced many, many, many people. And then we finally lost that program. I'm not sure what happened. But she did so much great work, almost by herself, and then she got other people to come along with her and built a really tremendous program for many years to support artists in the community, giving them grants and giving them studios and doing so many things. Had a gallery that supported the artists, So it's the individuals in the community as well as organizations that's done a lot, especially to help the arts in Rochester.
When we talk about the collaboration, a lot of times it's within the people within the room just making the art and the different conversations that they're having. Why is that important to you to have everybody create together?
Well, when people create, you get a chance to see their vision, and when you see what they do, it motivates and stimulates you to do something. And if you happen to be a person that's a studio individual, as soon as I see somebody paint or draw, I want to paint and draw. Okay, and it's that kind of thing that exists here in Rochester. And me and my wife have gone to other cities and so forth, but we've never found the kind of that kind of impetus to drive people or stirs people aesthetically like it does here in Rochester. And maybe that's just because these are my friends or whatever, but I think really it's the spirit that's in this place, that's in Rochester. Rochester is very supportive of the arts.
Yeah, I was going to say that. I want to turn some of these questions to Stanley, give you a little time to shine. I just want to mention that when I met Stanley when I was working as a reporter for WXXI, and I was election night, which is always a big night for newsrooms, and we were at the Triple U Gallery. The Police Accountability Board had just been passed, and I came up to her like any other reporter, and I'm like, "Can you say and spell your first and last name?" And she says, "Stanley Martin." And I said, "Wow, it's an interesting name." And little did we know, we'd be saying and writing her name very soon after that, and it would just be a well-known name in this community. And I mentioned to her earlier, who knows, there might be little girls named Stanley 20 years from now. So I just want to acknowledge that. But I wanted to, ask you, we come to know you through your work as an activist with Free the People Rock. And I always think about, when we talk about the revolution is not televised and all that stuff, but I'm curious to know the origin story and the conversation in the room and how that began. Can you share that with us?
Yes, for sure. And side note, if I ever have a daughter, I will be naming her Stanley Jr. So. So it all happened when we heard the news of what happened to George Floyd. It was during the pandemic. A lot of us were feeling afraid, alone, scared, and a lot of us were there. We know what that felt like. But after we saw the video of the killing of George Floyd, none of us could sit still, right? Like, I called my mom, I called Ashley Gantz, who is also another woman who has been so significant in my life and who I am today. I called Iman, we called Stevie Vargas, and we met at the Citizen Action Office at that time, and we asked ourselves, what are we gonna do? If we're feeling like this, there have to be other people feeling like this, so let's have a rally, bring people together, talk, get outside, and figure out what we can do to shed light on what happened in Minneapolis, but also some of the same issues we were seeing within the Rochester Police Department. So it really was women mourning and getting in a room together and thinking, what are we gonna do? How can we take action?
That's amazing. Was there that's such a big move to make. Was there any doubt in the organizing? Did you guys maybe wonder what the outcome would be?
So, no, we did not know that thousands of people would be marching with us. And if we had, we probably would have still taken action and done something. For us, we knew we wanted to create a safe space for people to talk about what they're feeling and not feel so demoralized by it. There's so many stories I can name and tell about Black men being killed by police. And we know what that feels like and what that does to you mentally. And we wanted to break out of that, and we wanted to create space for others in our community to be able to break out of that. So that's how it's all started. We knew something was wrong. We knew we had to say something. And I'm glad we did, as it's resulted in a lot of changes here in our community, but also changes within us and the people we are in community with. I've learned so much about myself, what I'm capable of, and I know the people around me. From 2020 till now, there's been significant growth. We're able to talk about our feelings. I'm known as the person who always wants to work and doesn't want to have fun. And I'm learning to bring joy in my activism. I see Halima here, and she's one of the folks who's like, we don't have to work to see each other. Like, we can go grab coffee. We can have a nice time. So I'm learning different ways of being since 2020.
That was 5 short years ago. You mentioned Daniel Prude, and now there's another name being called out in the streets. Robert Brooks. Can you just talk about, your thoughts when you first heard about that, and have you spoken to the family?
So I'm an abolitionist, and I am an abolitionist because I truly believe the systems that exist are not meant to serve us, nor are they meant to protect us. My brother was formerly incarcerated also, and I saw what it did to him. I saw the change from who he was then and who he is after coming out of prison. That is not rehabilitation. So knowing that and seeing the video of Mr. Brooks be lynched, there was something in my gut. It was the same feeling I felt in 2020. And we feel like we make progress, and then we see things like that happen, and it's kind of mind-boggling. Like, how are we in the same place today as we were in 2020, as we were 50, 60 years ago, as we were over 100 years ago? How can a Black man be lynched like that, I think the solution to what we saw in that video is really rethinking how we care for people, really rethinking what it means to put people and disappear them in jails and prisons versus really investing in the things that we know will keep them out of those systems. We held a rally, we worked with RAP, Citizen Action, and a few other organizations to support the family, support his son, his father, and I mean, the courage they have in this moment is something that I'm deeply inspired and moved by. To see your family member be harmed in that way and decide to fight, I think it takes a lot of courage, and we have to do things differently. What we have in this country is not working, and the people who are deeply harmed are Black people, poor people, queer people, marginalized folks, and we have to do something different.
Thank you for that. We often hear this, it sounds so cliche, right? Like history's repeating itself. And Professor Sheppard, you've been able to witness so many things that went on in this country, and a lot of times it's when it reflects in the art. If you were to create a piece specifically about this time in our nation, what would it look like and what story would it tell?
Well, I think it would just mirror. Thank you. It would mirror the reality of what's here. I think an artist normally, he has a dose of truth serum, and I think we basically reflect that which is around us, one way or the other. I know with myself, I tend to paint about what is around me, okay? And a lot of my work has to do with current events. I might do a painting of an urban scene, but within that painting, you see something about a newsreel of current events that's going on. Something that we might see on the news, on TV or whatever. But I'll weave that into the painting. Many times you don't see it right away, and then sometimes it's just right out there in front. But you'll see a combination of a spiritual element, a news element, as well as the physicality of the urban area or the suburban area, whatever, that's depicted in my work. Normally I'm taking from the reality of what's around me and blending it together. Some people might call it collaging or whatever, but really it's the truth of what's going on. It's the reality of what's going on. And it's not just always my point of view about it. as it is just revealing it, just getting it out there, because there'll be many, many other different points of views, but sometimes getting it out there and seeing it collectively, either in a composition or design or whatever, will stimulate people, and it will stick in their mind. Okay, a lot of my paintings are created for dialogue, not for me to tell people anything, but just to stimulate them to start thinking, and that's what I do with my work, and I think many other artists do that. They might do it more subconsciously. I do it consciously.
Thank you for that. What kind of conversations are you having with your students when it comes to, like you said, reflecting on society, reflecting on our community?
I don't necessarily talk about anything content-wise that relates to what's going on social or politically or whatever with my students. I'm more studio-oriented, okay? I'm more nuts and bolts about how they're using the color and how they're using the paint and how they're using form. And I leave the dialoguing, whether it be a narrative or whatever, I leave that up to them, But I get them to see form and the elements to create form as being a tool for saying what they really want to say, And then once they get it out there, then we all sit back and critique it and look at it and think about what they're actually saying in the work.
Are there similar themes that you're seeing now?
In many ways, they're the same thing, said in a different way.
That's art talk for you. Thank you so much for that. Stanley, in your chapbook, you incorporated your mother. And one thing that I learned, because even doing research about you, it's like, who is this young lady? Like, we don't really know her. So we get to know both you and Professor Sheppard in another way. And you came here as a preteen from Ghana. And what was that experience like, watching your mother get acclimated in the U.S.? Can you talk a little bit about that and how that experience, shaped you?
Absolutely. I'm so grateful that I was able to grow up there and see the possibilities of what communities can look like, and to grow up in a space that affirmed my Blackness and my dark skin, and grow up around people who looked like me, and thought it was more important for me to eat and be happy than figure out a career that, might make money for whatever reason, right? So coming to America, it was a massive culture shock for me, right? I immediately learned that because of the color of my skin, I'm somehow less than. I immediately learned that my gender was somehow not enough. There were so many things that I was confronted with that was in direct opposition to my upbringing of pride in who I was and being raised by a lot of women in my family. We struggled a lot, right? We moved a lot. We were very poor. We slept on the floor. We struggled. And I was also in a neighborhood that was really very significantly policed and had many confrontations with police just from existing, just from hanging out with other Black and Latina folks. It was rough. It definitely was important for me at that time to see what my mom did to overcome a lot of it. She didn't seem affected, and maybe she was, but she hid it very well.
That's a mom for you.
Yeah, yeah. She didn't mind that we didn't have much in the house. She would actually invite people, my friends who were also going through tough times, to come eat, to come have food. And she tells me now, well, at least I knew where you were, and at least I knew you all were safe if you were all here, even if we didn't have anything. So she really was that figure that helped me not fall into a lot of the white supremacist ideas I was being told through school and just existing. But I'm very happy that I had that experience, and it definitely shapes what I think is possible.
Beautiful. Mr. Sheppard, you brought your wife, your partner. Just tell us about how important family is to you. And, you know, we talked about Stanley and her family. Had to put you on the spot a little bit.
When I look at her, I see the most stable force in my life. I have, as an artist or as a person or as a male, you think about many different things, many different directions, and I remember her buying her first property, and I didn't want to buy a house. I wanted to just make art. She bought a house. It's that kind of stabilizing. That stability. If you don't have no place to live, you can't make any art.
That's a good point.
And so it took her a long time, many years, to get me to see what that was all about. But her patience and her kindness and her strength. You talk about a black woman.
Okay.
My mother stole us from my father's parents, when I was very young, when we were very young, and brought us to Rochester. And I heard her say, I want my children to at least finish high school. And I took it a step farther. Okay? There's something about the black female that can't be denied. Okay?
I heard it first, right?
Okay? There's something,
Okay.
something about that, But that's not to offend any other mothers, because all of those mothers got that strength too. But there's something about those black women that that don't stop. Okay, and she's my rudder. She's the most beautiful thing that I see in the morning. When she goes to sleep, she's got a smile on her face. When she gets up in the morning, she's got a smile on her face. Okay, and that keeps me level. And
All
I
right, give it
appreciate
up.
very
That's
much.
awesome. Thank you for sharing that. It's beautiful. They don't make them like you anymore, Mr. Sheppard. I'm telling you, it's hard out here. Stanley, you mentioned that you didn't even want to run for city council, and you just announced that you are running for re-election. So when you were interviewed by City Magazine in 2019, you said, quote, "I don't need to have a leadership role or title to be active in my work or to be effective." And you told the DNC, "I'm now entering a system in which my life is built upon destroying." So, years later, do you feel the same way? And do you feel that you've been able to make change being a part of that, quote, system?
So maybe I shouldn't say this to so many people, but if enough people ask me to do something, I start considering it. I start thinking about it and why they're asking, and I realize, okay, maybe I can continue to help in this way. So I blame most of you here today for this decision. I mean, from the time I got to this country, right, I felt like there's just something so wrong about like Black kids sitting on a stoop and us just being questioned by police. There's just something so wrong about like what it means, how you're seen, and I see that here in this community. There's something so wrong about being in the richest country in the world, and somehow we still have people who are unhoused, people who don't have access to health care, and a high child poverty rate within this city. So when I talk about destroying systems, these are the exact systems I'm trying to tear down. People should be fed, no matter who they are. Housing should be a human right. You shouldn't have to have a job to be provided housing. Like, frankly, everyone deserves shelter. Everyone deserves food. And until we come to a space within this community where people are, until we come to a place where everyone is housed, where our kids have healthy meals, where people, aren't limited by their zip codes. As we know, where you live is a very significant determinant of health outcomes. I have to continue to fight to tear down those systems. And when I say I really mean we. Miriam Kaba is one of the women I look up to. She's Ghanaian, and so was my father. And she always says everything worth doing is done with others. So as I organize and work towards tearing down some of these systems, it's been so important to have a collaborative strategy that includes people who are directly impacted. Recently in Rochester, we passed the Good Cause Eviction Law. And, 3 months within getting into office, that was the first big thing I worked on. I've been in council for a little over 3 years now, and I had my People Slate Allies, Councilmember Lupien, who I see over there today, and Kim Smith, and we were so courageous in saying, this isn't working. Activists on the ground, what's one of the best ways to keep people in their homes? Good cause is one of the ways. So at that point, we worked to do that, and it failed. It was voted down 6-3. And I mean, we were crushed. We processed that loss for years, but while processing, we continued to fight and take action. We worked with our partners in the state to amend the law. We still kept in touch with the Citywide Tenants Union, who continue to organize people on the ground. So, I mean, I'm so proud to have been a part of that fight, and I learned so much, Things don't happen overnight. Can't believe I'm saying it. But with hope, with relentlessness, which we were, things do happen. So I'm hoping that in my next term, we continue to make some good things happen.
Thank you for that. Well, real quickly, this question is for both of you. I had a chance to speak with you guys before and just asking you how you felt about being chosen to be honored in this way. Really quickly, what do you hope that your legacy would be? I mean, this is what this whole event is about.
You're looking at me, right?
Elders first.
Okay. We used to have a game that we played when we were in grade school. We would come up to somebody and punch them in the arm and say, pass it on. Okay? So I'm punching everybody in the arm out here. Pass it on.
Okay.
So that's what I think.
Awesome. Stanley?
I mean, if you know me, I can cause a lot of trouble. Most of the time it's good trouble, I'd say.
Okay.
So I would want to follow the legacy of abolitionists like Angela Davis, like Frederick Douglass, like Miriam Kaba, people who took time to study and understand the issues with this system, but not stop there, actually join with community and propose solutions. I want to be known for identifying problems, but also working with community to find solutions that keep us all safe.
Thank you. So we're just going to take a few seconds to just reset so we can get our photographers up on stage. Chairs up real quick. So I'm just going to go ahead and we'll start with, our essayist and photographer. Kwaje Donnell is a freelance photographer and writer living in Rochester with his wife, sons, and daughter. His photo and essay work have been published locally and nationally in various publications, including the Democrat and Chronicle and Washington Post. He's honored to be contributing for the 5th time to In This Moment, and has been involved since the inception of the chapbook series. Welcome to the panel, Kwaje. Lots of bios. All right, I should have took a sip of water. This one is pretty hefty. All right. Rashad Parker is a Ghanaian and Cameroonian descent, specifically from the Tiger people. He was raised in Rochester, New York, and earned his Bachelor's of Science degree in Communications and Afro-America Studies from the State University of New York at Brockport. I'm an alum too, shout out. He has presented research on African American male cultural identity at the University of Maryland and the University at Buffalo, aiming to dispel the myths and negative stereotypes about American men often perpetrated by mainstream media. Rashad earned a Master of Fine Arts with an Arts Administration certification from Visual Studies Workshop in Rochester. He's a filmmaker, visual artist, curator, entrepreneur, and youth educator. His work explores the intersection of art and social justice activism using Afro-futuristic mixed media that incorporate metals, found artifacts, videography, 16mm film, sound, sculpture, photo collage, textiles, and film as a substrate. Rashad has written, produced, and directed 4 critically acclaimed films on social justice initiatives in Rochester, and has created the video series Rock City Speaks and Conversations on Culture. We ain't done yet, y'all. In his role as a youth educator, Rashad has helped more than 30 BIPOC youth gain acceptance to college, half of whom earned 4-year degrees to date. Several of these youth artworks have been featured in major galleries, including the Rochester Institute of Technology's City Art Space and the Gallery Obscura of the George Eastman Museum, where we are today, guys. Currently, he teaches 10th grade global studies at the University Preparatory Charter School for Young Men, and is also one of the founding members and chief operating officer of the 9th Floor Artists Collective, LLC, a Black-owned arts organization in downtown Rochester that believes in the transformation power of art to inspire positive change, wellness, and cultural unity. Welcome, Rashad. What got me was he was looking surprised. That's awesome. All right. Thank you guys for joining us. So Rashad and Kwaje were part of the project for Mr. Sheppard. So thank you guys. But we have 2 more people to bring on stage. Tiana Mignon is a PR and media relations specialist who focuses on storytelling and message creation by utilizing social media, traditional media, and micromedia She's able to spark necessary conversation between communities, bolstering discussions for healing for long-term relationship building. She specializes in campaigns that focus on equity and inclusion and is excited about bringing the intersection to the media, climate change, and justice industries. Come on, Tiana. Welcome. And our photographer, Mecca, also known as Mecca Stars, is a multidisciplinary artist whose work is fueled by her commitment to uplifting others. Through her various creative outlets, she illuminates the shared beauty and complexity of the human experience. With a sharp eye for detail and an innate sense of creativity, Mecca uses photography to capture meaningful moments, tell stories, and create lasting memories. Her work serves not only as a form of artistic expression, but also a means of healing for herself and for those who she connects with. From her art to her radiant presence, Mecca embodies the idea that we are all stars, shining in our own unique way. Come on up, Mecca Stars. So Mecca and Tiana were both responsible for the chapbook featuring Stanley. Give it up for everybody on stage. It's kind of great to see these teams. So I'm gonna start with our, we gotta get, yeah. Does everybody have a mic? Awesome. We'll start with our photographers, both Rashad and Mecca. These questions are for you. I know, Rashad, this is not your first go-around within this moment, but Mecca, this is for you. So I guess what were your thoughts when you were asked to come onto this project?
Absolutely. So it was definitely like very honoring to be chosen as a photographer for this project. It's actually very crazy because some of the chapbooks are at my jobs and just like, you know, around at local places that I go to, including the studio that I work at. And I'm just like, yo, it would be so cool for me to have my own book. And then here we are today. So, yeah.
And Rashad, like I said, this is not your first go around, but learning who you were going to be shooting, what were your thoughts?
Wow. Well, I take pictures of Mr. Sheppard all the time. Sometimes he probably would rather I not. But I always have my phone, which we can't really call it a phone. We have to call it a camera, according to Apple. So there's that. But I'm always capturing the moment because the moments are always special to me. I don't take it for granted at all. The Sabbath moments that we have at Joy Gallery, and I call them that because that's how I feel about them. And so I too was honored to capture Mr. Sheppard in this way in particular.
What was either of you's intention before even, you know, being able to shoot your subject? Like you said, you take pictures of him all the time. So how did you approach it this time?
I think that this time was more, focused, capturing the moment. Also trying to relay almost like a watercolor aesthetic. I felt like it was incumbent upon me to somewhat be true to form when it comes to just capturing what that ethereal feels like. And he was in the middle of moving things around in the studio. So I'm like, well, why not? This is like the moment to capture. So.
What about you, Mecca?
For me, so during our meeting, one of the things that Stanley highlighted was her connection to her mom and, the support that she has with her family. So I definitely wanted to highlight that and just like their bond and connection. And it was so awesome having them in the studio and just being able to witness their love, their, their light and, just being able to have them in front of the camera.
I want to turn this back to our featured artist and leader. What was your experience with your photographer, and what can you share about being shot in this way?
With Rashad, with Rashad, he's he's like family. You know, you know, I think I'm so fortunate to have young men hanging around me.
Keeps you young.
It keeps me young. It keeps me alert. But Rashad, I knew his aunt, Flossie, when I was in grade school. So it's like, there's a long channel of family ties, So I know him from that perspective, but I also know him as a professional. And the thing that I find to be the most remarkable thing about Rashad is that deep down inside, he's a fine artist. Okay, he's all about high-level critical thinking, and when he's at his best, when he can be totally himself, be his imaginative self, and I love to watch him and catch him. And matter of fact, my wife has mentioned that about him. His judgment, his eye, his sensibility. Sometimes he gets carried away with too much stuff going on around him because he's very aware, very sensitive, and that takes him away from that deep insight that he has. But he's a remarkable character. We need him.
Awesome. Sounds like y'all have some mutual admiration. That's awesome. Stanley, what was your experience working with Mecca? And feel free to chime in. Was there any behind the scenes, things that you want to share?
Yeah, it was so special to share space with Mecca. She made me feel so safe and comfortable and beautiful, and my mom felt that way too. Also, I just love working with women. There's just something about how we're able to relate and ways our stories align, and she brought her beautiful kid to the shoot, and I felt honored to be a subject in front of your camera. Your eye is incredible. My mom was so happy. So my mom used to be a model back in the day, and she has never let me forget that. So to be back in front of the camera and feel safe and seen, it was just such a remarkable experience looking at her do something she once loved. It was special, something I'll cherish forever.
Thank you. Is there any behind the scenes, anything that we didn't see in those images that you want to share?
Yes. So as Stanley mentioned, when this shoot came about, I was actually in the middle of maternity leave. So I had just had a baby, and she is here today. Her name is Jewel. She's up there in the crowd. But she has also been a part of this whole process behind the scenes. She's been at the meeting, she was at the shoot, so it was dope to be able to have her there with me. And just a quick little backstory with Stanley. We actually met at a mutual friend birthday get-together, and we played this game to where we had to exchange some goals that we had for ourselves, and then the goal was to actually accomplish those goals. So we were able to do that, and then being able to connect with her on this project, it was really just a full circle moment.
Thank you for that. So we're going to focus on our essayists, Kwaja and Tiana. Writing about someone's life when there's a word limit can be very challenging. I guess I'll start with you, Tiana. How did you decide what to include in Stanley's essay?
Yeah, this was really difficult. I think whenever you're trying to capture that much greatness and 800 to 1,000 words, it really is difficult to figure out what you're going to pare down and what's important enough to kind of capture the essence of that person that you're writing about. And so for me, I tried to really focus on maybe 2 or 3 canon events, you know, if you've seen Spider-Man, and really kind of flow them and then use the essay to not only give you that inside look at Stanley, but allow you to also learn the lessons that she has on this journey. And so is there a way, as you're watching her kind of contend with her mom, moving to the States and dealing with that, what lessons can you take out of this as well? And so as much of, you know, the 800, 1,000 words is on Stanley, it's also about what you can learn from Stanley. And so that was really my goal in writing it.
Kwaja?
Yeah, it was really difficult. You know, Mr. Sheppard is in his 80s and kind of taking his entire life and getting it down to, you know, I think I pushed it a little bit. I went to 1,200 or something. I hope no one counted. But one of the things that kind of kept coming up with Mr. Sheppard was community. And so I wanted to kind of paint that through line throughout the story, like how does community happen for him? So being a 5-year-old moving to Rochester, and what was that community like for him going through high school and then into the Army, and then the community that he creates in his Joy Gallery. It just kind of tells that story. And one of the things I did for Mr. Sheppard's story was I wrote the first paragraph and the last paragraph, and then I kind of filled in everything in between because I knew how I wanted to start. You know, Mr. Sheppard, who I call Mr. Sheppard, but when we were in his space, he says, "I'm just Luvon," and I thought that was a very humbling way to, you know, kind of talk about himself, or, you know, having the impact that he's had on people, and then, you know, kind of talking about retirement in the end. You know, if I sit in the same place too long, you know, I'll stay seated. I thought that was just a very interesting way to kind of tell his story.
What were you surprised to learn, both of you?
I guess I'll jump in. I think it took most of the room by surprise. I know some of the organizers are already talking about it, but the fact that Stanley didn't want to run at first. I think there's so much about your image that comes across as this was already kind of part of your destiny, that focusing on that, I think, was really illuminating for people who may feel in a similar space of wanting to do more, but not quite sure how. You may not feel that pull within yourself, you know? And so we dig in a little bit into that process of how we built the People Slate. We discuss all of that leading up into it, and even Stanley's decision to say, you know what, yes, I will run. And so it's kind of funny to be here a few years later and say, well, yeah, I'm gonna run again. And so I'm really hoping that folks who read this can look at this and say, you know, not everyone is going to be that 5-year-old who wants to grow up and be president. But that doesn't mean that there isn't a role for you, both in proper government and, you know, community organizing. So I think that was the biggest surprise for me.
What about you, Kwaja?
I think one of the things that came from our conversation, and we spent a bit of time together, is just the humility, right? So Mr. Sheppard's work is, you know, been seen. People come to him every Saturday. You know, his students hold him in such high regard. And I had made this statement. I said, you know, Mr. Sheppard, how tall are you? And he says, you know, I'm 5 foot something. And I said, you know, people think of you as this larger than life person. And he goes through all of this stuff. And he says, well, that's in their heart. Right? And so it was like, I'm just Luvon. And it kind of kept coming back to that humility about, you know, he is just, he's the person in the room that, you know, facilitates the conversation, but many times the conversation is just happening around him, and the connection is you know, coming to see Mr. Sheppard.
It's organic, pretty much.
Very organic.
And Mr. Sheppard and Stanley, you know, spending time with these essayists talking about your life, it can get very personal. How much time did you guys spend together? I know that you guys had a relationship, Kwaja and Mr. Sheppard, but Stanley and Tiana, what was your relationship like before this, and how was it being able to, talk about personal moments?
So, an important thing to say about 2020 is there were so many people involved in so many facets of it, and Tiana was one of them. And even prior to that, I had met Tiana when she worked with Open Mic Rock and had done an interview with her. And 2020 came around, Tiana's like, I have these skills. This is a gap we've seen in the movements before. Let me help y'all get your message across. So I always admired her, had trust with her. I feel like she knows me and what I stand for, my principles. So it just felt like it was perfect. It was meant to happen. And when she asked me certain questions, I realized that I've just been going and going and going and haven't had time to reflect on some of the things that were really difficult for me. So I want to say thank you for how prepared you were. I think it really, it actually probably impacted my decision to run again.
Y'all heard it here first.
Right. Yeah, it was, yeah, and I find that I don't talk about myself and my origin a lot. I'm always focused again on the work and how we're moving forward. So it was really important to have that space to reflect.
Mr. Sheppard?
Well, yeah, I think it's not working. And with working with Kwaje, I had the pleasure of knowing him from other people that I knew and that I had high regard for, and I'm not even sure he knew that I knew those people. So I kind of got a glimpse of who he was, but more than that, he had a show at the gallery of photographs, black and white photographs that he took of various murals in the Rochester community, in and around the Rochester community, and he has this gift of making something that is rustic, something that is that's undeveloped. He'll work into a really rough community and pull out the jewel, So I knew that if I could trust my soul, so to speak, with him, because I knew he would handle it gently. Okay, so I just let it fly. When I sat down, I just sat down and just talked, and I knew that he would pick out the right words, and he would put it back together again, because I saw it in his photographs. Okay, and I see it in his walk, I see it in his talk, I see it when he hugs his son. There's something special about the man, as there is something about all of us. There's something unique, but it just stands out. And then when I found out that he was a writer, I said, yes, he's a thinker, a real thinker, and his own kind of thinker, he can't be bought, he can't be sold. I love that.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Everybody on this panel was selected for a certain reason. In this moment the organizers are very intentional about supporting Black artists, Black photographers, Black essayists, giving people an opportunity. And some of their stories, like you shared, Stanley, that, Rochester, you didn't grow up here. Neither did you, Mr. Sheppard. And, some people are implants, but I guess I want to ask everybody on the panel just really quickly, why Rochester? We can start with you, Rashad.
I didn't have much choice in the matter. My mom brought me here.
But you could be anywhere in the world. You know, you've done so much work. You know,
Yes.
you could be anywhere, but why here?
As Bert mentioned earlier, because I had family members that had deep roots in Rochester that was about making positive change. There was something called the Swan Festival back in the day, the Jefferson Avenue Block Party. You know, these things where black folks came together and showed really what community looked like and felt like and tasted like, was something that was deep within my DNA, honestly. And so I felt like, okay, well, it's my turn now. It's my generation, and it's my opportunity to make a positive impact in whatever way I can. I felt the responsibility to do so for Rochester.
Thank you. Kwaje?
People that know me have heard this story, but I met a beautiful girl from Rochester, and I followed my heart here. And it was only supposed to be 2 years. 2 years became 18 or so, or 17 years now. But I found community here, you know, after being here for a little bit. And I found, you know, folks that were photographers, folks that were writers, folks that were into a lot of different things. And, you know, I followed my heart here, but I fell in love with Rochester once I was here.
Stanley?
Yeah, echoing a lot of the sentiments, and something Mr. Sheppard said, there's a spirit here in Rochester that is just so powerful that I feel like it's wrapped around me and just helped in my development and growth and showing me ways I can love that I never knew was possible. When I was in grad school, there was someone I met named Emily Good. I was going to go to grad school, and then I was just going to go about my business, maybe move to New York City, maybe see if I can do some fashion design. But this was also while I was studying to be a mental health counselor. If you know me, you know I'm trying to do all things at once all the time. But she, in one of our classes where we were talking about mental health, she would always raise, like, but how are we not addressing capitalism? How are we not addressing the material conditions that lead people to have mental health crises and are unwell? And then she didn't stop there. She took me to visit Jalil Muntakim, a Panther and revolutionary who was incarcerated for almost 50 years. And is now in our community. And I met him, and then I met folks at the Flying Squirrel, and it just, my world and my mind just kept being expanded by the city, and I can't imagine living anywhere else.
Mr. Sheppard, this question is particularly for you because you could be anywhere in the world. Why Rochester for you?
My wife won't leave.
And she's just like, yep.
I tried to take her to a warmer climate. She don't want that. So you know, but yeah, there's something about Rochester that's infectious. Even the landscape, even the color. You know, I mean, I do a lot of plein air work. You know, but there's something about the green foliage here that's more jewel-like and richer than any place else that I've seen. You know, I've gone to California, been down to South Carolina, you know, Georgia, you know, but I've never seen terrain like the kind of terrain that I see around here. There's a variety of seasons. And I like that. I like that variety. You know, I like the terrain. I like the landscape around here. But I also like the social consciousness of Rochester. I think that there's something very special here, and I think there's there's a high level of spiritual awareness that's in this community. And I like that.
Awesome. Tiana? And she's a mom now.
I am a mom now. That was my baby that was carried out of here, y'all. Yeah, so why Rochester? I think a lot of it has already been said. I definitely agree with the beauty of both the place and the people as well. It also works out amazingly for my career. I work out in, kind of movement PR. And so there's been so many major changes that have kind of sparked right here in Rochester and then led change across the nation. And so it's kind of this perfect microcosm of if you're going to lead a revolution, well, there's a huge base of people ready to get involved right here. You know. Yes. So I think that's the big part of it. As much as I'm able to pour into the community, I think there's a lot more people kind of pouring into me. And so having that village so close geographically, but then also right in this perfect space as we kind of look at, I don't want to be a doomsday person here, but climate change and all of these other issues will be very attractive. And so I wanted to be in a place where I can kind of both report and work in these spaces, but also make sure that our communities are prepared for all of these different issues.
For me, I would say I was born and raised here, so Rochester has always been home. It will always be home. I tried to leave, came right back, and it's just like I feel like I understand that my purpose is a part of being here in Rochester. Being able to birth and lead a new generation, and being able to help the community thrive and be the change that I want to see. So.
Awesome. Well, really quickly, and thank you guys for that, really. And anybody can jump in on this question, but if there's anything that you've taken from being a part of this project, what has it been, if anybody wants to share?
I can start since I got the mic and I'll pass it
You
down.
got 2 minutes. You got 2 minutes.
All right, cool. For me, I would say I really take the fact that my photography speaks volumes. And again, just being able to highlight the light that we all have within ourselves, and being able to help whoever I'm shooting, subjects feel comfortable and, seen and heard, and just being able to be confident in who they are also helps me to do the same in who I am. So,
thank you. Anybody else? Oh, can pass the mic.
Pass the mic. Well, first of all, I just want to say I ain't scared. If you know me, then you know I'm not scared. I'm not a scary person at all. But lately, I have been taking more time for myself, more self-care, more time to reflect, more time to make sure that I'm good mentally and emotionally. So that's very important. It's very important for Black men to feel like it's okay to do that. So I needed to set the record straight with that to start. Now, in terms of the photography, I feel like it is an extension of my personality. I am a spoken word artist as well, so being able to paint pictures with words and that those pictures also be able to stand on their own is very, very important to me. And I hope that that is what you're able to see. My visual representation of a man that I honor and cherish, and then with Kwaje's talent as being able to really, bring it home for us. So, thank you.
Thank you. Well, on behalf of myself and in this moment, thank you to our luminaries and artists for their dedication to uplifting communities, really. And our audience, give yourself a hand, y'all, for making this a wonderful celebration. Thank you guys so much.